Ask the audience to take their seat, please, and we'll get started. Call the meeting to order. And if we would stand, please. We have Mr. Jess. I'm sorry, roll call.
Dr. Bofi.
Present.
Dr. Bofi is present. Mr. Davis.
Present.
Mr. Davis is present. Ms. Edmonston is not. Yeah, she is here. Is present. Mr. Garvey. Here. Mr. Garvey is present. Ms. Holloway.
Present.
Ms. Holloway is present. Dr. Jones.
Present in body, if not in mind.
Dr. Jones is present. Ms. Lewis.
Present.
Ms. Lewis is present. Ms. Orange Jones is not present. Mr. Rock.
Present.
Mr. Rock is present. Dr. Thomason.
Present.
Dr. Thomason is present. And Ms. Vautier. Here. Ms. Vautier is present. You do have a quorum.
All right, thank you. And now, if we would please stand, we will have Miss Janice Lindsay, the Woodlawn Elementary School principal, deliver the prayer, and Superintendent Cade Brumley from DeSoto Parish to deliver the pledge.
Please bow your head while we pray. Heavenly Father, we pray that you will give us your gift of knowledge, that we might always make the best decisions for the good of all the school children in Louisiana. We pray that you give us the wisdom to know and define our tasks, the strength to build and refine our educational goals, and the courage to persevere as necessary. We ask for your direction that we might make unselfish decisions for those we serve. We pray that all of you who are assembled here have a safe journey home. We thank you for all your past and future blessings. Amen.
Amen.
Please face the flag as we honor America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good morning. I believe Mr. Davis.
Yeah, Mr. President, I have a point of privilege, if you would.
Certainly.
I have with us today in the audience Ms. Caitlin Codella and Ms. Lucy Davidson of the U.S. Chamber Foundation Center for Education and Workforce. I want to ask them to take a few minutes to introduce themselves, tell us why you're in town, what you're working on. If you would, please come to the front. Make sure the green light's on your microphone.
There's a little button right there at the bottom of the mic. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much, Tony. I'm Caitlin Codella. I'm the Senior Director for Education Policy at the Center for Education and Workforce at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. I'm here with my colleague Lucy Davidson, and we've been working on, after a few conversations with Tony, who's very persuasive, we've been working on the business case for high-quality early childhood education. And we're actually in the state today to launch our state report. We're launching a toolkit today at an event with the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry. And, when thinking about it, Louisiana was an obvious first step with all of the work that you guys are doing. And we're looking forward to not only launching the toolkit, but to sort of having a conversation with the business community about the role that they play in high-quality early education and what that looks like in both public-private partnerships and beyond. Did I miss anything?
Great, yes. So we're very excited to be here today.
Is your mic on?
Oh,
Pull that mic a little closer.
I think so. Is that better? Thank you. Sorry, as Caitlin said, I'm Lucy Davidson. And we're so excited to be here in Louisiana today talking about this report and about the importance of high-quality early education and care as not just something which is important for children, but also something that is important for families, for businesses, and for the broader community in this state. Our report and our toolkit really highlight the benefits of high-quality early education for the future workforce and also for the current workforce. So, we're very happy to be here, and thank you for having us.
Board, is there any questions or anything, just to make sure? If not,
any board member have a question or comment?
Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
And I would like to thank you. I personally believe that early childhood education is the key to closing the achievement gap. And if we don't have that, we don't have anything after that. So, all right. Our first item?
First item is approval of the agenda.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
All right. I got Ms. Bofi and second by Ms. Vautier. Any discussion? Any opposition? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item, please.
Next item, approval of the minutes from August 16th, 2017.
May I have a motion, please? Ms. Holloway, and second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Brophy. Any discussion by the board members? Any opposition to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Next item is report by the State Superintendent of Education.
Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, over the course of the next several weeks, there are going to be important goings-on, and I just wanted to provide you an update on our annual cycle. This is the point of the year where we report back to school systems on their aggregated performance results. In the first week of November, the department will be releasing school performance scores and letter grades for the 2016-17 year, as well as early childhood performance profiles. This is an important shift in that this year that means that every parish-wide lead agency, every child care center, every Head Start, every private and public pre-K that receives public funding will receive their performance profile at the same time, on the same cycle, and through the same process as school boards and charter schools do for the letter grades and school performance scores for their respective schools. We have briefed every lead agency in the state as to the results that parish-wide and in their child cares and Head Starts and pre-Ks have been achieved already. We're also doing private briefings for school systems and for school systems statewide in the last week of October, next week, and then we'll move into the more public reporting phase. You should note that this year in the K through 12 system, schools will receive both an indicator as to how they have fared based on the old formula, but they will also receive just a non-consequential but informative report as to how they will have performed under the formula that the committee passed out yesterday. So that's an important distinction to note as well. It's not of consequence, but we will just give them the information as to how schools would have fared under the results that were approved yesterday. What that then kicks off is a cycle of more detailed reporting for superintendents, for lead agencies, and for principals, where over the course of the next couple of months we give them extremely detailed data as to school performance on a standard-by-standard basis, and student-by-student basis, as to on a teacher-by-teacher basis, so that they can make planning decisions as they come into next year, and that then feeds their development of priorities, their application for federal grants, which goes on across the spring, all part of the state's ESSA process as well. So this is an important part of the cycle and just another step in the process. Happy to answer any questions about this, and appreciate the time, Mr. President. Thank you.
Any board members have a question? Hearing none. Next item, please.
Next item is the board committee reports. Item 5.1, Academic Goals and Instructional Improvement Committee. Dr. Brophy.
On behalf of the Academic Goals and Instructional Improvement Committee, I move to approve motions 1 through 28, noting that motions 21, 26, 27, and 28 are notices of intent, noting motion 27 as an emergency rule, and pulling motion 24 as a read.
Do I have a second? Mr. Davis seconds. Prior to taking action here, I'm going to ask Superintendent White to explain motion 27 a little bit more fully, because there was some confusion as to exactly what we did with that yesterday.
Of course. Members, as you know, there is a policy that allows for a school system where a natural or man-made disaster has occurred and the school system has been out for 18 days to be fully exempted from school performance scores and accountability. There was one school system last year that this circumstance happened in, and automatically they have that right, and they've petitioned for that right, and that's Livingston Parish. And you saw Superintendent Wenzel was here yesterday. Livingston Parish will not have its schools receiving any letter grades or performance scores for this year under this board's policies. East Baton Rouge Parish was out 16 days last year due to the floods, so not 18 days, but 16 days. Their superintendent petitioned you for the same status as Livingston Parish had achieved. And that was what they had put forth in their letter to you, and that is what many of the people who came to the table yesterday were advocating for. Unfortunately, that if that had been granted, that would have created an unfortunate circumstance in East Baton Rouge Parish where there would have been no ratings for schools, which is what your policy gives Livingston Parish. No ratings for those schools means no eligibility for comprehensive status under ESSA, It means no eligibility for targeted status under ESSA. It means no school choice rights for the kids in that parish. It means no charter school considerations, and on and on and on down the line. East Baton Rouge has a very difficult situation. Therefore, you approved a motion yesterday to retain letter grades, but also to acknowledge some of the flooding realities that occurred in East Baton Rouge Parish. In doing that, you very slightly modified a provision that was already in the Bulletin 111 proposal. The Bulletin 111 proposal said for flood-impacted schools, they would have used the 2016 letter grades rather than the 2017 letter grades. You modified that slightly to say, for East Baton Rouge Parish, all schools will use the 2016 letter grades rather than the 2017 letter grades. And that will be true of the district, level 2. It will be the 2016 district score rather than 2017. Like you, Mr. President, I've received some concerns expressed to me about that policy. So let's talk about what the actual effect of that is. The original Bulletin 111 proposal would have probably affected 5 to 10 schools where the letter grade would have dropped in 2017. Those were flood-affected schools, and therefore it would be held to 2016 rather than 2017. That's 5 to 10 schools where it would have changed. The additional change you made yesterday may impact an additional 5 to 10 schools. So again, the original Bulletin 111 policy you were considering yesterday would have affected 5 to 10 schools where the letter grade in 2017 would have been worse than 2016. You added an additional 5 to 10 schools by making it parish-wide yesterday. And you did that in order to avoid what was being petitioned for by the school system, which was no accountability scores, but also to acknowledge that some of what they're saying was right, which is that there was significant flood impact. So you allow for a school rating while acknowledge the reality of what they were saying was true, which is their significant flood impact. The sum effect of what you did will change 5 to 10 schools only. Thank you, Mr. President.
Do any board members have a question or request for further clarification? All right. Thank you. I think that let me ask one. How will this affect the district's performance score?
Same way. We will look at last year's district performance score. We'll look at this year's district performance score. They'll be calculated separately. If last year's was better, we'll use last year's. If this year's was better, we'll use this year. What we will not do under what you passed yesterday is a convoluted hybrid where we look at every single school and decide which one was better. It's very simple. Either we use last year's or we use this year's. Both calculated straight up because of the flood impact. Okay. And I do believe that because of the flood impact, the district score in 2016 will probably be better than the district score in 2017.
And so there would be no cherry picking of individual scores to affect a roll-up that would...
Not for that purpose, no, sir.
Okay, thank you. I think that clarifies the questions that were coming my way. Does any board member, Ms. Thompson?
When you get ready to vote, then I have a comment then.
Sure. Okay. Well, here's the way I propose that we do this, because we have a motion on the table in a second. I'd like to clear all of the motion, all of those except for item number 24, which is a read item, and I'd like to handle that one separately. So I think this might be the appropriate time for you, Doctor, to make your comment or your question.
Okay. On motion 25B111, I want the records to reflect that I voted nay on that one.
Okay. I'm sorry, say that again.
On motion 25B111, I want the records to reflect that I voted nay on that one.
Okay. You got it? All right. Any other board member have any? Okay. Yeah, I'm going to ask you all to be sure to pull your mics close, because at the other end has a hard time here. So if I remember right, it was motion 25 point...
B111.
B111. Okay. 25 B111, he votes nay. And he wants that reflected in the record. All right.
Thank
so
you.
I would assume then that we have to take a separate vote, because we can't take them all the rest of them in globo now with that. We can? Okay. All right. Stand corrected as usual. All right, so we have a motion. Any discussion by the board other than Dr. Thomason's? Any opposition to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Now let's deal with the read item number 24. Okay.
On motion of Ms. Boucher, seconded by Ms. Lewis, the Academic Goals and Instructional Improvement Committee deferred until the board meeting on Wednesday, October 18, 2017, consideration of revisions to Bulletin 1566, pupil progression policies and procedures relative to student promotion.
All right, we're at a point then that we can take discussion on that. Do we have any comment cards on that particular one? No, no comment cards? Yes, sir, you can open up the discussion.
I'm sure Ms. Vaucher would like to comment as well, but I'll just reflect what my impression of the dealings over the last 24 hours have been. First, you'll remember that the hang-up on this was that in the old policy, it didn't change, but in the old policy, there is a requirement that if students don't meet the promotional standard in 8th grade, then they are passed into a transitional 9th grade, that student receives summer remediation. And Ms. Vaucher expressed a concern yesterday that because test results come back in June rather than in May, that is too late now for summer remediation to be applied. Taking that comment on its face, we have tried to work on language that gets us past that, but what we have realized is that the law still requires, not BESE, but the law requires that summer remediation be offered for students not meeting the promotional standard. Therefore, and that, you'll recall yesterday that was my concern, was a legal concern. Therefore, what I have said to Ms. Vaucher is that being my underlying concern is that we remain abiding by the statute, that I will agree to work with her, with any other board member, who is concerned that the way that remediation is treated in the law is antiquated. And this is a law that goes back many years, and I do think it is antiquated in many ways. I will agree to work with her and with any BESE member to create a legal definition that conforms more to our understanding of remediation as it is today. We have many more tools at our disposal. We've identified effective teachers. We've got online learning. We've identified effective curricula. We've identified effective interventions. That's a very different world from where we were when this law was conceived. And I'm fine to go back with any board member who wishes to and to try to address this issue with the legislature, which is where I think it's more appropriately addressed. Ms. Vaucher, I would certainly welcome your response to that. I hope that accurately reflects what I said to you earlier.
Wait a minute.
I don't know.
Gotcha.
Oh, now, okay. When the law was written, everyone was in agreement with it. In fact, all parties were in agreement with it. When the law was written, scores did come in prior to summer programs commencing in all school districts. And, we think that was a good thing. And we want that type of remediation to occur. The logistical problem is the test results are not in prior to summer remediation in the majority of school districts. Now, Dr. Jones has pointed out that in the law there is a mechanism for some exceptions to occur based upon meeting with parents, as he read to me this morning, and that's signing off. And there are some avenues that we can take that are in accordance with the law. So if Superintendent White is telling me that in accordance with this particular policy, we're going to be allowed to progress in the same manner in which we have been operating with an agreement to get together to address this discrepancy as we move forward, then I'm okay with that. But I just wanted on the record and understood that the law was put into effect and passed by the legislature when we were in times where we got test scores prior to summer programs beginning. So this is really the issue, and I see Ms. Holloway shaking your head because you run your own school with that as well. So this is something that we do need to modify in some way and look at other forms of intervention, look at some of the things that we can do to make sure the support is there for those students as we move forward. Is this what you're passing out, Dr. James?
Yes, board members,
Go ahead.
I asked staff to copy that and highlight the sections I had pointed out, and so we just pass that out to you. That's for your reference on that. And the only comment I would add to that, because it clearly shows in there what the requirements are, but it also shows the other options that are available to a district. And I would note for the record that summer school and summer remediation are not necessarily synonymous, that in this day and time we do have a lot of different ways to address the summer remediation issue.
Right, as long as we are allowed to follow the section in the law which does provide for an alternative. I just want to make sure that our policy does not prohibit us from following this particular section.
All right, any other discussion on that?
Dr. Jones, I agree with Ms. Voce, absolutely, and I shared my concerns with John in regards to that, and I would like to be on that conversation. And it's to protect and it's to assist the superintendents in their plans for the future, which is very high maintenance in trying to set those plans for our scholars and to have alternatives.
And I would also note for the record that summer remediation doesn't have to end with the first day of the regular school session. In this day and time, it can be a comprehensive program that could go all the way through the whole school year for those kids. And certainly, I would encourage districts to look at every way possible, because these kids typically in this particular position are over age and 1 or 2 grades behind on reading level and so forth. So the piece that you normally have to address to get them back on track is the reading piece, as well as the academic pieces in the other subject areas. Any other board members have a comment on it? All right. I suppose we're ready to take to clear that one.
Dr. Jones?
Yes. I'm sorry, Ms.
Did you see
Edmondson.
my finger?
I did not. I need new glasses.
Thank you. Is there an issue with the word summer? I mean, should we look at remediation and take out the word summer altogether, knowing that districts can do summer, but really the issue is remediation, not necessarily when we do it, but that is something that we need to do. In addition to that, I would also like to be included in how we present this and resolve this. So that's just a thought.
Okay, yeah, and whether or not summer may be an old term, that, you know, I think what we would have to do there is look at addressing it with the legislature to get the law changed, to change the definition of remediation from just summer to all year round. All right, any other board comment? Do I have a motion to approve that? I need a motion to approve the
Revisions
notice of
to
intent. The
1566.
Yeah, the motion to approve the 1566 changes as presented and as a notice of intent. This Dr. Bothey moves, and Ms. Holloway seconds. And any discussion from the board? Hearing none, hearing no opposition, the motion carries. Next item, please.
Next item, 5.2, Administration and Finance Committee. Mr. Davis.
On behalf of the Admin and Finance Committee, I move to approve motions 1 through 54.
I'd like to recuse myself from motions 18 and 22.
Let the record reflect that Dr. Ms. Boucher recused herself from motions 18 and 22.
Dr. Bopey, will you second that motion? Because to the
Sure, I'll second.
All right, good.
Okay, Dr. Bopey second. And Mrs. Edmondson, I saw your finger this time.
Thank you. I need to recuse myself from motions 18 and thank you, and 28.
Ms. Edmondson recuses from motion 18 and 28. Dr. Thomason?
I'd like to recuse myself from motion 18.
Dr. Thomason recuses himself from motion 18. Mrs. Lewis, let me guess, you want to recuse yourself from something?
Yes, motions 2, 18, and 20.
Recuse herself from 2, 18, and 20. Any other members? All right, before we take action on it, we got a couple of comment cards. Will the following people please come to the table? Kevin O'Donnell, Jerry Pilk, Brandy Bordelon, and Candice Latino. And if Mr. Jimmy Gore would sit on the first row, we'll bring you up as soon as one of those gets through testifying. Any place where there's a microphone. All right, I don't know which one of you is going to speak first. Choose one, and be sure to introduce yourself, please.
Hello, my name is Jerry Pilk, and I'm speaking today as a parent of a deaf child and a board member on the Commission for the Deaf. My son has struggled since birth, being born early, and during that time we found out that he did not pass his hearing test, and I'm telling this thing about his past so that y'all can know what I've learned through the journey, and to speak about why it's so important to have someone who is deaf or someone who is with the culture of the deaf to be able to be over the school of LSD to guide our children. When we first found out that he was deaf, a lot of the doctors, people told us that we need to do this to fix my son. When I dug deeper, I found an amazing deaf community that accepted us no matter what we decided to do, learn ASL, get him cochlear implants, and they gave me the pros and cons. And through this journey, I've learned that my son is not broken, and there's no need to fix him. And I also learned that I had to go to someone who was very similar to my son. I had to go to the deaf community to understand things, because as a hearing parent of a deaf child, I did not know sign language. I did not know anything other than my son could not hear me. I've learned that those who have leadership roles in my son's life should be deaf, because he is deaf. He needs someone that he can look up to. He needs someone that can mentor him. And I feel that it should be someone with his native language as ASL. If my son only spoke French and went to a French immersion school, we should not have someone that would speak Japanese over the school. So why should we have someone who speaks English, fluent English, and does not sign, does not know the deaf community, to be over it to guide a school, children that are deaf? Our kids need to see deaf professionals in higher positions so they know that they can do anything, not just be a person that graduates school, but they can be someone important, that they can lead others who are also deaf. My son loves his school because he is surrounded by others who speak his language, who are immersed with him, and who are teaching him how to love this amazing language and heritage that he has. We moved 4 years ago so that my son could go to LSD because of the programs there. There's nothing like it in Louisiana other than here in Baton Rouge. And I'm hoping that y'all can make a decision and understand from my point of view of how leadership affects how they grow up. And we want LSD to be the best it's ever been, which is why I'm pushing so hard to have those who are control over the school be deaf or be an intricate part of the deaf community. How else can my son learn his heritage and love and grow up and enjoy being deaf?
Thank you. Who's going to be next?
Hi, my name is Candy Latino, and I am the mother of a deaf son. Like Jerry, I struggled trying to learn what my son's needs were, despite what audiologists and doctors and whatnot told me about having to fix him. And we found LSD back in, actually 1999. He was only 3 months old. They started coming to the house. He started going to day school there when he was 3. He's now a senior. He's 18. He's captain of the football team. We've been through the highest of highs with the school when we were top 3 in the nation, down to the lowest of lows when we closed down for a month in 2008. This school has been a huge part of our lives for the past 18 years, and my son would not be where he is today without the deaf community supporting us. I beg y'all to look into the school and see about getting deaf leadership there, people that are competent in the deaf culture and language and community. They need to be involved because we're a very low population and we need all the support we can get. And as hearing parents of deaf children, we don't know what's involved in their culture until we actually start meeting with the deaf community and having their support. We have a couple of retired teachers in the audience that I look to because they were teaching when my son started school and now they're retired, but we need more of them and more deaf role models such as Jimmy and Jay and Kevin O'Donnell. He needs to be able to see that he doesn't have to accept a low job. He doesn't have to be a janitor. He can be anything he wants to be. And by me and my husband giving up everything in Lafayette and coming to Baton Rouge to make sure we were involved with him, the community, and the school. He's graduating this year and planning on going to Gallaudet University in D.C. to be a rocket scientist. But he wouldn't be there if it weren't for the deaf leadership I had outside of the school.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Brandy Bordelon, and I have never been to the Louisiana School for the Deaf or any other school for the deaf. I was raised in a mainstream school, and I noticed that a lot of children who are students who are deaf, who graduate from the School for the Deaf, have a different culture and language. They didn't have the frustrations that I've experienced in the real world finding jobs. It's very common from deaf people, and so growing up, like I said, I was in a regular school, but I experienced a lot of bullying. I was not involved in a lot of activities in school either. I was provided with speech therapy and interpreting, but I didn't have any friends who were deaf like me. I didn't have any part of the deaf community with me, and it's very serious. You know, our children who are deaf need the language that is offered at the School for the Deaf. They need that access to the real world to be successful in their future. How can they learn a good foundation to learn English without a stronger foundation in personal language? How can they set goals for the future? How can they have even desire to go to college and become somebody in the society? We have deaf people like, I don't know, I'm thinking of Beethoven who was deaf. Who had those access. I noticed that some schools use an antiquated language method to teach sign language to the deaf, and it's something that's extremely important in the school system. All deaf students need to have access to their language. So I don't have deaf children myself, but I wish I did, because if I did, I would be able to put them at the school for the deaf. They could have access to those activities and experiences that I didn't have. Because deaf children need to have more parents' involvement in their life. If their parents are not supportive of their life, they're not going to be successful. They will not be successful. It's a deciding factor for their future. And I had parents who supported me all the way till I graduated from high school. I'm a mother of 3 children right now. All 3 are hearing, but they use sign language at home. And I believe that if LSD improves, it will improve the life of our children. If there are more access to language, more support to as far as language, and more parents' involvement, more after-school activity, more parents involved in that as well, it will be the key to success. And I know it is a very small school, but I noticed that there are a lot of deaf who out there in the world who have experienced so much frustrations in the hearing world, so much anger, because they always relying on an interpreter. They don't have full access to the activities that are in the school system, to the associating with peer. Where is that association when they're the only deaf in the school? Where is that going to happen? So I'm here in behalf of those deaf children who can become amazing and successful adults if they have the right opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please. And I believe we had one other gentleman who was going to speak. Would you also come to the table? Okay. All right, sir.
Hi. So my name is Kevin O'Donnell, and I am not from Louisiana personally. I grew up in New York, in Syracuse, New York. I went to Rochester Institute for the Deaf there, and I also have deaf parents. We all went to the same school. I have 3 brothers and a sister who are hearing, but all of them are fluent in sign language, so we communicate without any barriers among us. I graduated from college at the NTID, National Technical Institute of the Deaf, in Rochester, New York, and I graduated with a degree in engineering. I worked for 36 years for an engineering company that is called in the Research and Development team, of which I was part for 15 years. I'm now retired. I also worked for UPS for 19 years, and I'm a very active person. But I am a strong supporter of the schools for the deaf, and that they have to remain, because it's a wonderful opportunity for education, for sports and school activities, and also for just other activities such as drama club, photography club, things like that, vocational opportunities, printing, computer, home ec, all sorts of opportunities that are important factor in the future of our children and their chance of getting a job someday. I see nowadays children and where they are at this time, and we don't see them. From 1990 to today, we don't see deaf children. They are put in a public school with hearing children, and they become isolated in those types of situations. They don't know anything about deaf world, about other deaf adults. They don't know because. As a young person, I was involved in politics. My parents were as well. We had those opportunities. We were able to get feedback. We had classes that we had classmates with whom we could discuss classwork with and help each other. But if you have one child in a hearing school, they don't meet anyone who can help them. The deaf is always placed at a lower status than the hearing students, and they don't have an equal status. So that's what happens when they go to the public school. I have seen it throughout the years, but since 1990s, children are being put in public school, and they have interpreters who are not certified to interpret. And maybe somebody who has one basic course in sign language, and they put them in the corner to interpret for the deaf children, and they're interpreting all the wrong information. The students don't have access to full communication. Communication is crucial for anyone in the school, especially for the deaf students. I'll give you an example. If you have if you reverse things and you had a majority of deaf people with a few hearing people, and the majority would try to oppress and try to close the schools for the hearing people, you always feel like that it's unacceptable. Well, it's the same thing. Deaf children need to have those schools. They need to have education, communication that is easy, that they can have direct communication, and that will change their opportunity to have jobs in the future. But nowadays, we see young people, young deaf people, where are they? They don't have jobs. They don't have, they keep failing through school. They don't pass their grades. I have a high school diploma. A lot of those kids don't get it. I was the salutatorian in my school, personally. And, I mean, I'm just very happy of my school years, but New York has 7 schools for the deaf in the state of New York, and 4 are under the state and the city, but all of them are still in place. So what we need, what has been done in New York is there have been protests. For 3 times we had 3 protests as far as Act 4201 to try to keep those schools for being closed. The deaf community fought very hard. The last time was about 4 years ago, and they were able to keep those schools open for the benefit of deaf children and their education.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm out of town.
That's right. Thank you. Yes, sir. Who? All right, let's wait one moment. By the way, before you start, I have to comment. It is incredible to me how fluid this lady is in doing that. I'm trying to keep up with the I can't believe how she does it. So.
Well, can you imagine? This is what the deaf children in Louisiana are supposed to get. This is not the type of interpreting that they get. They have interpreters who are not fluent. This is what you're saying is real interpreting, very fluent. And I'm happy to have these interpreters here with me today.
Well, thank you. Please introduce yourself before you go.
Sure. My name is Jimmy Chalice Gore, and I'm a state representative for the Deaf Grassroots Movement. And good morning to all, to the public and the BESE board members. I see a lot of parents here in the audience who have come. We've called them to come over and support. Some of them were not able to come because they have work and transportation issue. But we have quite a group of people here supporting us today. And I'm a little bit bothered, I would say, but I'm trying to get the negative feelings to put into actions. I know that several of you don't realize that you are responsible for the School for the Deaf. You know that it is your responsibility to care for the school here in the state. And I'm not here to criticize you, to criticize the work that you do, but I know that you have a lot to do in the community. But I'm sure that you would like to have deaf students have a great school and a great education and be successful. I'm sure this is what you want, right? So now at the Louisiana School for the Deaf, I'm very concerned because we're having issue. The school is good, but we're having issue with the administration who is changing things and affecting the community. We have people saying that we are trying to get the school to close, which is not true. It's actually we want to work with everyone. And I really don't appreciate those negative talk that is made that by trying to change the school, by changing the administration, we want the school to close. It's not true. 25 years ago, Louisiana School for the Deaf was a fantastic school. It was a great, nationwide it was recognized. I was at the Gallaudet University at the time, and I heard a lot of positive things about Louisiana. But now, we had a lot of students at the time who would come to Gallaudet from here, but now we don't have it anymore. We want children to have great opportunities, to be great adults, to have all those fantastic opportunities, but nowadays we don't see that. This school has gone to the 49th or 50th on the list of School for the Deaf in the state, the list of states for the School for the Deaf. And it is your responsibility now to do the work necessary to bring it back to what it was. If you can hear these parents, you've noticed, we want to work with you. We're not here to criticize you or complain, but we have concern. I love education myself. I see those children, I see them suffering, how far behind and how lost they are in the system. And this has to stop. We have to get together. Wouldn't you agree? And now it's time for you to listen. It is your responsibility. We need you to work with the community, and we need you to listen to what those parents are saying. Thank you so much. Do you have any questions for me?
Any board members have a question?
I have.
Ms. Edmondson?
I have questions. Yeah. but I do have a couple of comments. I want you all to understand that I am delighted that you are here. You have gotten your board, which is this 11-member board, engaged in your desires. And it pleases us because we hear you say that you used to be one of the top schools in the nation. We want that as well. Superintendent White has committed. I've been on on board since we started this, and we are committed to making that school great again. If you would not have come to us and been tenacious with us, I don't know if we would be here, so I commend you. There's a wealth of information in you people here. None of us on this board are deaf or not hearing. So we don't understand what you understand. And we appreciate you and ask you to stay engaged with us so that we are able to make sure that every deaf student in our state meets with success. So thank you. Know that we're hearing you. Know that we recognize that we are your board, and we are going to take that responsibility very seriously as we move forward with our evaluation for the school. Okay? Thank you so much.
Dr. Jones.
Yes, thank you. And I hope someday some of you board members will be able to choose a deaf or hard of hearing person to serve with you on the board. It would be fantastic. But thank you so much. I really appreciate your comment. It really makes me happy. Let's keep working together. You have a great day.
Okay. Ms. Holloway, I believe.
Yes, I ditto Ms. Edmondson's comment, and I want you to know, as co-chair of the Special Ed Advisory Panel, that this group of individuals have voiced their concerns, and we do hear that on the Special Ed Advisory Panel. I do recall when the state school was top-notch, and we desired for it to be at that point again. And do know that we support you, we hear you, and we are behind you in your efforts. And so we are aware that the assessment committee is in the works, and thanks, John, for that, because we're keeping a close watch on the committee. And Jimmy and Jay, thank you for your efforts and tenacity to continue. Thank you.
Okay, and we're not quite through yet. I just received another card here. Paula Rodriguez. Okay.
Good morning. Thank you for listening to comments today. My name is Paula Rodriguez. I'm the director of Deaf Focus, a community agency in town that provides counseling, interpreting, advocacy to people who are deaf, deafblind, and hard of hearing. I'm part of the advocacy team that met with John White and his people and a few BESE members, specifically Mr. Garvey, Ms. Lewis, and Ms. Edmonston, and along with Representative Patricia Smith. We shared our concerns about the deaf school and about deaf education throughout the state in general. In my practice as an LCSW, I see deaf children who have a variety of concerns. I have been overwhelmed to notice that 65% of the deaf children that I see are not able to communicate. They cannot talk and they cannot sign. They have no usable first language. No way to communicate. They cannot tell anyone how they feel, why they are sad, who might have touched them inappropriately, what they want for their birthday, their favorite color, nothing. They're isolated and they are vulnerable. This breaks my heart and causes me great concern for their education, their safety, and their well-being. This is one of the urgent concerns I have tried to impress on Mr. White. His solution to have an assessment of all the board special schools is okay, but it leaves deaf children in schools struggling and vulnerable. And this addresses the deaf school, but does not offer any assistance to other schools and districts throughout the state who are struggling to educate deaf children effectively. Deafness is a low-incident disability. Compared to other disabilities, there are fewer kids impacted. These children are no less important, they're just fewer in number. Compared to other disabilities, there are fewer teachers who are specifically trained to know how to address the language learning needs of these students. Those who are trained in general education or even in special education in general do not understand the impact that deafness has on children and don't understand the multitude of ways deafness impacts students. Yet these are the people making decisions about how best to serve these students. We need experts in positions where they can help make a difference. Culturally competent leadership, people who understand deaf education and who have experience successfully teaching deaf children. The state had granted funds for training, then pulled the funding. So now even the few parishes that were receiving training are not able to have this. Very few people across the state have experience or training in effectively educating deaf students. And it is not just that students are not passing classes. In fact, many are being socially promoted. It is that we have students who are impacted by the lack of language to the point of becoming not born this way, but becoming cognitively impaired due to lack of access to language. We have students whose potential is seriously limited due to ignorance by leadership in schools. I just don't feel that students across the state should have to wait for a review of the deaf school and for the deaf school to implement changes and improvements in order for them to be able to have guidance to address the needs of their students.
Please wrap up your comments.
If you care and you want to learn more, let me know. I'd be grateful to have more than 3 minutes to share my concerns.
Thank you. Any question or comments from board members? All right, next item, please.
We need to clear the...
What do we need to clear?
We have a motion and a second.
We have a motion and a second to do what?
The AF minutes.
Oh, for the AF minutes. I'm sorry. It's been a while. Any discussion? Okay, Mr. Evanson.
Dr. Jones, I just feel it's important now that we have a good group of concerned citizens for this issue and the whole board. I'd like for the superintendent to explain what we're going to do. We know it, but everybody may not know it, and I'd just like for you to address the concerns as we're moving forward with the evaluation. Would you do that?
Sure.
Thank you.
Over the course of late October, November, and December, an external group who is a private organization will be conducting an on-site review, including interviews, classroom observations, statistical analysis, as well as an inventory of best practices from around the country. That will be done in the School for the Deaf and Visually Impaired, the School for the Deaf, also the School for the Visually Impaired, and the Special Education Center in Rapides Parish. Each of those reviews will be conducted with a subcontractor, and the subcontractor in the case of LSD is the American School for the Deaf, which is in Connecticut, I believe. But there is a domain-specific or a disability-specific subcontractor in each case. They will provide to you and to the department a comprehensive report that details all of the strengths and weaknesses that they've observed based on their analysis of our schools and based on what they know of schools around the country. Based on that, you, working with us, will formulate school improvement plans under Title I, and it will be up to the state, ultimately up to the board if you so choose, to approve those plans. those plans can improve some of the things that were mentioned here today. They certainly will include other items. And I think that's our best chance of getting it right. We do agree there are challenges. We, however, also think we need a patient process and a thorough process in order to get the plan right. But we do need a plan.
Any other board member with a question or comment? Hearing none. I'm sorry, Ms. Voce.
I'm glad to see that we are addressing, the needs of Louisiana School for the Deaf. I personally in my own family have a nephew who is not completely deaf, but on the very severe hearing loss spectrum, and I do know the challenges that he faces. Around the entire state, those school districts are facing those challenges each and every day to provide services for these children who are in the traditional public schools. And what we are finding is not a lack of effort to accommodate these children and to help them to realize their full potential, but finding a lack of qualified individuals within the community to work with these specific children. We are having trouble finding completely competent and certified ASL certified individuals to work individually with the children. We are having a great deal of trouble finding special educators whose focus and knowledge is working with children in the deaf community, as well as many other low incidence exceptionalities. So as we progress, I think this is, a great first step in what you're looking to do and what we all are looking to do. But we've got to do some focus on education programs within the colleges, in partnerships with districts around the state, to make sure that we can get qualified individuals to work with those children of families who have chosen to send their children to the public schools within their communities and not having to move to Baton Rouge to get those services and uproot their entire families to provide the services that their children so sorely need. So I would just implore us to, as we look to allocate dollars to the training of individuals to become much more competent, certified but much more competent to work with the children from the deaf community, as well as other low incidence exceptionalities that we are faced with serving every single day. So, when we look at those statewide IDEA funds or statewide other funds that we have, because that can be parts of any of the federal grants from the statewide programs, probably. I would hope that we would begin to focus more on how can we serve the needs of these children and all children with these low incidence exceptionalities as we allocate funds to increase the competencies of teachers and other certified personnel who work with these children every day.
Thank you. Any other board members? Hearing none. Is there any opposition to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item, please.
Next item, 5.3, Committee of the Whole, RSD Matters Only, Administration and Finance Committee. Mr. Rock.
On behalf of the Committee of the Whole, Administration and Finance Committee, I move to approve motion 1.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Got a whole bunch of seconds. Okay, I'll take Ms. Bogus. She's the closest. All right. Any discussion of the motion? Any opposition to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Next item, Committee of the Whole, RSD Matters Only, School Innovation and Turnaround Committee. Mr. Rock.
On behalf of the Committee of the Whole, School Innovation and Turnaround Committee, I move to approve motions 1 to 3.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Okay, I'm going to give it to Dr. Thomason this time. Any discussion by board members of the motion? Any opposition to the motion? Motion carries. Next item.
Next item, Educator Effectiveness Committee. Ms. Holloway.
On behalf of the Educator Effectiveness Committee, I move to approve motions 1 through 3.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second by Mr. Davis.
Any okay.
It was just for the call for the discussion, but I wanted to note for the record that I'm going to recuse myself from motion 3.
Okay, Dr. Thomason recuses himself from motion 3. Any other discussion by board members or comments? Hearing none. Any opposition to the motion? Hearing none. Motion carries. Next item.
Next item, School Innovation and Turnaround Committee. Ms. Lewis.
On behalf of the School Innovation and Turnaround Committee, I move to approve motions 1 through 8, noting that motion 8 is a notice of intent.
All right. Ms. Lewis has made the motion. Do we have a second?
7. Sorry.
Motion 7 is
I'm sorry. Give me the motion again.
On behalf of the School Innovation and Turnaround Committee, I move to approve motions 1 through 8, noting that motion 7 is a notice of intent.
All right. Second. We have a second. I'm going to give this one to Mrs. Edmondson. Any discussion by board members?
I'd like to just go on record to be opposed to motion number 2.
All right. Ms. Boche expresses her opposition to motion 2. Any other discussion?
Ask Dr. Thompson. Remind him on this one.
Okay.
That was for the New Harmony formula.
Is there, nobody needs to recuse himself from that? Everything's good to go?
Yeah.
All right. Any discussion by board members? Any opposition to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item, please.
Next item is 6.1, AG Advisory Council, to receive the minutes and approve the draft agenda.
May I have a motion, please? Ms. Edmondson, excuse me. Second by Ms. Holloway. Any discussion? Hearing none. Any opposition to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Next item, Superintendent's Advisory Council, receive the minutes and approve the draft agenda.
Motion, please. Ms. Holloway. Second. Dr. Bofi. Any discussion? Any opposition to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item, please.
That concludes your agenda.
That concludes our agenda. Thank you for your attendance.